Welcome, everyone. So today we're going to be sharing some stories, real stories. These are first-hand accounts from people, experiences that are deeply unsettling, sometimes genuinely terrifying. We're not talking fiction here. These are moments that really make you question things, safety, everyday life, maybe even reality itself. Our focus today is exploring those chilling times when life just takes a very unexpected, very dark turn.
And it's quite striking how these kinds of accounts resonate, isn't it? From what we see in the research, these narratives often bypass our rational minds and hit something more primal, our basic instincts kicking in, whether it's facing something completely unexplainable or dealing with the darker side of human behavior. They really do reveal a lot about us, about our instincts, and maybe how thin that line is between what we know and, well, what we don't.
That's a really good way to put it, that thin line. And speaking of the darker side of human behavior, let's start there. Our first group of stories involves encounters where the real horror comes from other people, sometimes hidden, sometimes right out in the open. It really shows how quickly that feeling of safety can just shatter. Okay, so this first one happened to a 19-year-old in Pikeville, Kentucky. Now, Pikeville's a small town, not known for much crime, and that's pretty key here. It's about 10 a.m., they're waiting at Hardee's for family, and this guy comes up, starts a conversation. You know, small town, people chat, so it didn't seem too weird initially. But things started getting off. He claimed he'd seen the narrator at some college party. They'd never been to one, said he played D&D constantly, another lie. And keep in mind, it's 10 in the morning, and he's sipping from an alcohol bottle, even offering some. He also mentioned losing all his friends to drugs, and for a second, the narrator actually felt kind of sorry for him. That pity, plus the safe small-town vibe. It really lowered their guard.
So they walk and talk for maybe 10 minutes, and suddenly our narrator looks around and realizes they're in this really shady part of town. Like, didn't even know this area existed in Pikeville. They stop outside this house that looks totally abandoned, boarded up, with this dark, super sketchy alley beside it. Then the guy starts talking about two girls living there, saying they were DTF, basically implying they were available, and asks if the narrator wants to meet them. And that was the moment. Like, okay, terrible part of town, sketchy guy, drugs mentioned, nobody knows I'm here, and now he wants me to go into an obviously derelict house. Common sense finally screamed, no. So they declined, say their family's probably waiting. The guy visibly gets upset. Then he asks if they can help him move a pool table into his van, which is conveniently parked down that sketchy alley. Declined again. And that's when the man starts reaching into his jacket pocket. All those little alarms that had been kind of buzzing. Now they're full sirens. The thought is, this guy might actually stab me. Right at that peak panic moment, their phone rings. It's their stepmom. Completely random. A total lifeline. They use the call as an excuse. Make a quick exit. But the man follows them for 3 whole blocks. Later, they find out that area actually has a history of disappearances. It's known as one of the worst spots in the country for human trafficking. The narrator said it felt chillingly like something out of Silence of the Lambs, you know? The Buffalo Bill lure them to the van scenario.
Yeah, this is a textbook example, unfortunately, of how predators can weaponize social norms. That initial friendliness, especially somewhere you expect people to be friendly, it just bypasses your defenses. A lot of research, like from groups studying trafficking patterns, shows these grooming tactics are incredibly common. The fake friendliness, trying to isolate the target, offering something false. It all plays on our ingrained desire to be polite, not make a scene. It really highlights how this awful stuff can happen right under our noses.
It's really disturbing how effective that can be. But it makes you think, aside from just trust your gut, what are some concrete things people should watch for? Especially when, like you said, we're conditioned to be nice.
Well, a major red flag that comes up in behavioral analysis is incongruence, things not adding up.
Yeah.
Like in the story of the college party lie, the D&D lie, the drinking at 10 a.m., the sudden switch to an abandoned house, none of it fit together. When someone's story feels inconsistent or they're pushing you to change your plans, go somewhere isolated quickly, those are huge warning signs. It's really about noticing when someone is trying to control the situation and get you alone.
That makes a lot of sense. Incongruence. Okay. Our next story, though, shows how bold these attempts can get, even somewhere you'd think is totally secure. This one's from a daycare teacher. She was outside alone with 7 3-year-olds. They were on a playground, fenced, locked gate. But the playground was a bit far from the main building, like 150 yards, and the walkie-talkie signal out there. Pretty bad, apparently. So this maroon SUV pulls into the parking lot, drives past the playground, circles around, slows down, then stops, like right in front of the fence. Tinted windows, couldn't see inside. The kids, 3 years old, totally oblivious, just playing. But the teacher, she starts feeling really uneasy, tries the walkie-talkie to static. The SUV drives around again, stops, and this time the passenger gets out, just stands there by the car. Then the driver yells over, "How many kids you got over there? Need any help playing with them?" All right, okay, instantly her training kicks in. She herds the kids fast to the corner furthest from the SUV, tries the radio again, still nothing. Her mouth goes completely dry, stomach drops, but she locks eyes with the driver. And in the absolute sternest voice she can manage, she just yells, "If you touch my kids, I'll kill you." The driver and passenger, they just laugh. But she doesn't break eye contact. She slowly raises the walkie-talkie to her mouth again, presses the button and says, "Clearly, call 911 right now." And amazingly, through the static, the director's voice crackles back, "What's going on?" Before the teacher could even answer, the two guys scrambled back into the SUV and just tore out of the parking lot. She got the make, model, plate number, then yelled for the kids, "Run! Run with me!" They all ran back to the building. The director and other staff were there waiting. Once inside, safe, the teacher just broke down crying. So grateful the kids listened instantly.
Wow, that is incredibly intense. It really speaks to the absolute audacity of some abduction attempts, but also the critical nature of quick decisions. Her confronting them so directly, so aggressively, that likely threw them off completely. Victimology studies often show predators seek perceived vulnerability or compliance. Her immediate defiance signaled she was not an easy target. It really hammers home that need for vigilance constantly, even in places we think are safe havens, and the sheer power of assertive communication as a deterrent.
It really is amazing she could do that. I mean, the instinct for many might be to freeze up, right? Or try to de-escalate differently. What allows someone to tap into that kind of fierceness?
That's a really insightful question. Trauma responses do vary wildly, but studies looking at self-preservation often highlight a lightning-fast risk assessment. For her, the stakes couldn't be higher. It wasn't just her, it was those 7 children. That powerful protective instinct can sometimes just completely override personal fear and trigger that fight response, especially when there's such a clear, immediate threat. It's really quite remarkable courage.
Absolutely remarkable. Okay, our last story in this human encounter section is about isolation and a really calculated kind of terror. This happened to a 15-year-old kid. He was alone in his mom's dry cleaning factory late one evening. The place was like 30 miles from home. His mom had just popped out for maybe an hour, left him there. He knew the place inside out, basically grew up there. So it was maybe 6:30, 7 p.m. Mom's gone. He's just killing time on her work computer. And bam, all the power cuts out. Total darkness, except for a couple of faint emergency lights. His first thought, old building, probably just blew a fuse. But when he goes to the fuse box, it's open. And the wires inside, they've been cleanly cut. Right then, he knows. He's not alone. His heart's pounding. He scans the dim factory floor and spots at this shape, slightly darker than the dark wall about 30 feet away. Sees a little glint of light reflect off something. He realizes that's a person, and they're holding something sharp. Thinking fast, he pretends he hasn't seen them. Just acts casual, walks towards the back door like he's just leaving. As he reaches for the lock, he hears that loud footsteps coming towards him, but not running.
More like a purposeful race walk, fast and controlled. He yanks the door open, bursts outside. There's a motion sensor light that clicks on, thankfully. He doesn't hesitate, dives straight under one of the big delivery vans parked there. Seconds later, literally like 4 seconds, the person emerges from the factory door. It's a guy, medium build, black pants, black hoodie, and wearing one of those creepy smiling masks from the Purge movies, holding a big piece of shot metal. The kid's trapped under the van, absolutely terrified. The intruder starts methodically checking under the other vans, working his way closer. Just as the guy is about to check the van he's under, headlights sweep across the lot. His mom's car pulls in. A total miracle. The masked man sees the car too, turns, and just bolts off into the darkness. The boy waits a couple more minutes, shaking, and scrambles out, runs inside of his mom, who's obviously worried. Shows her the cut wires. They call the police immediately.
That is pure psychological terror. The calculated nature of it, it's deeply disturbing. The detail about the race walk, not running, that suggests control, maybe even enjoying the hunt, prolonging the fear. It feels less like a panicked attack and more like a game to the intruder. And the mask, the Purge mask specifically, that's not just for anonymity. It's chosen to maximize fear, to dehumanize. Analysis of similar attacks suggests this kind of thing is about inducing trauma, making the victim feel utterly powerless and hunted. It really underscores our vulnerability when isolated.
Wow. The mask not just hiding, but amplifying the terror.
Yeah.
Weaponizing fear itself. That adds such a horrifying layer.
Precisely. It elevates the act beyond simple assault into something designed to leave lasting psychological scars.
Yeah, truly disturbing. Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving into stories that, well, they defy easy explanation. Experiences that brush up against the paranormal. Things that make you question the reality you thought you knew, when the world just doesn't behave like it's supposed to. Our first one here takes place in a place called V-Town, described as small, dusty, kind of rundown. A family lived there in a duplex on Main Street for about 4 years. The person telling the story calls those years the forgotten years. Like, there are whole chunks of time missing from their memory, but specific scary events. Those are crystal clear. Things started early on, like hearing a huge crash from upstairs. They go up, and a big toy that was definitely in the toy chest is now clear across the room. Apparently this wasn't isolated. Lots of loud crashes, things seemingly being thrown around happened often, so they eventually move out. But about a month later, the narrator and some friends decide to go back. The house was foreclosed, empty. They wanted to try and capture something. Getting in was easy, just popped a plastic panel on the front door. They stayed inside for 5 hours.
During that time, they heard dishes breaking in the kitchen, loud stomping going up and down the stairs, multiple staircases, apparently, and even distinct growling sounds. What finally drove them out, totally terrified, was hearing clear laughing and then knocking coming from inside the empty house. The narrator later came to understand themselves as an empath, someone very sensitive to, like, energy imprints and paranormal stuff, which might explain why it hit their family so hard.
This is fascinating because it touches on several ideas within parapsychology. That experience of forgotten years after intense stress or trauma in a location. Some theories suggest it could be a psychological coping mechanism, the mind walling off prolonged exposure to the inexplicable. And the phenomena describe the crashes, thrown objects, but also the growling and laughing that sounds like it could be a mix. You have what some call residual hauntings, like energy echoes of past events, the objects moving perhaps, but the growling, the laughing, that suggests something more interactive, what's often termed an intelligent haunting. The idea of being an empath adds another layer, suggesting a heightened sensitivity that might make someone perceive these subtle or not so subtle energies more acutely.
So wait, you're saying it might not have been just one thing, but possibly like two different types of paranormal activity happening there?
Potentially, yes. It could be a combination. Maybe residual energy from whatever happened there before combined with something aware. It definitely adds complexity.
Wow, okay, that idea of something aware that leads into this next account. A very specific, very isolated, and deeply terrifying moment. This person was alone in their auntie's apartment. Small place, it's late, like 1 a.m. they're in the living room, lights off, TV volume low, it's quiet, and then they hear it faint, but clear. The sound of a glass or a cup sliding across the wooden table that was about 10 feet away. Instant paranoia. They get up, check everything. Aunt's bedroom door, closed. Bathroom, locked, empty. Main door, locked. Kitchen, empty. There was literally no one else there. Couldn't be. But the feeling grows, the sense that something is right there, about to attack me or something, is how they put it. They scramble towards the lamp to turn it on, needing light now. And in that exact instant, as their hand reaches the switch, they hear it, right near them. A deep, throaty, demonic snarl. Just that sound, nothing seen, no explanation. They mention how non-believers dismiss it, but for them, alone in the dark, it completely changed everything they thought they knew.
What's really striking there is the specificity of the sound, that demonic snarl. It's not just a bump in the night or a creak you could explain away. Psychologically, being isolated like that and then experiencing something so bizarre and overtly threatening with zero rational explanation, it massively amplifies the fear. It can absolutely shatter someone's existing framework of reality, forcing them to accept possibilities they'd previously dismissed. It confronts you with the limits of rational understanding.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that you can't explain it away is what makes it stick with you, I think. So frightening. Okay, our final story tonight goes somewhere else entirely. It feels like it bends the rules of physics, maybe even time itself. This happened out in California, on a sort of back road. Runs parallel to the freeway, but it's woodsy, quiet. Someone used it for late-night drives. It's about 1 a.m., windows down, music playing loud. Now there's a spot on this road, a memorial for a couple who died in a crash there years ago. Usually driving past is nothing significant, but this one night, as they approached the memorial spot, everything changes. Everything got slow, they said, like it wasn't real time anymore. The loud music just vanished. Silence. And they found themselves driving through this thick, cloudy mist, like a really low, dense fog had suddenly appeared just in that spot. Then came these really weird physical feelings. Electricity was going through all my body, they described it, like my teeth had electrical currents going through them. Followed immediately by this intense, overwhelming wave of just horrible sadness and fear, but it felt alien. Like my own emotions weren't my own.
And the time thing was bizarre. The whole experience, driving through the mist, the feelings, it felt like it lasted maybe 20 minutes. But when they checked the clock after emerging from the mist just past the memorial, only 2 minutes had actually passed. Understandably, they avoided that road for a whole year. But then, eventually, they drove it again. This time, their mother was in the car with them. As they passed the same spot, it happened again. The mist, the feeling. And crucially, their mother felt it too, the exact same thing. It wasn't just in their head.
Wow. This account really pushes the boundaries, doesn't it? It touches on some very speculative but persistent theories around place memory or residual energy. The idea is that locations where intense trauma or emotion occurred might somehow retain an echo or imprint of those events. What the narrator describes, the localized mist, the emotional wave, the physical sensations, even the time distortion aligns with anecdotal reports, sometimes labeled as temporal displacement or localized environmental anomalies in parapsychological literature. But the absolutely key factor here is the shared experience. The mother feeling it too shifts it dramatically. It moves it from a potentially subjective internal perception to something that seems objectively present in that specific location, validating the experience in a profound way.
So it wasn't just a feeling they had, but potentially something literally happening in that place that both of them experienced. That's why.
That's certainly the implication, yes. It suggests an external phenomenon rather than just an individual psychological reaction. Fascinating and deeply unsettling.
Absolutely. These stories we've shared today, they cover such a range, don't they? From the chillingly human threats to these moments that just seem to break reality. They really do force you to look at the world a little differently, maybe question your comfort zones. A potent reminder, I think, of the hidden dangers, but also the deep mysteries that might be all around us.
And perhaps what's most terrifying are indeed those things we just can't fully grasp or explain. But amidst the fear, there's also incredible resilience in these accounts. People thinking fast, fighting back, trusting an instinct even when it doesn't make sense. It speaks volumes about human courage in the face of the unknown. It leaves you with, well, wonder, certainly, but also a very real sense of caution. What about you listening? What resonates most?
Thank you for joining us for this collection of stories. Until next time, please stay aware out there and always, always trust your instincts.